In the vast expanse of American history, music is more than just a tool for expressing emotions. It also carries the weight of social, cultural, and even political transformations. Rap music, emerging as a fresh art form at the end of the 20th century, holds especially deep social significance. It's not merely a blend of rhythm and rhyme. It's the voice of the ghettos and the urban underclass, a force of resistance, survival, and self-expression. In an era marked by social upheaval and escalating racial tensions, music became an outlet for emotions. This was particularly true in the Black community, where it served as a weapon in their fight against oppression and poverty. Today, we're diving into the world of rap music, focusing on one of its most iconic figures, Tupac. Rap culture didn't spring up overnight. It's deeply intertwined with a complex social backdrop of American history. From the sweeping civil rights movement to the rise of the Black Panther Party and other radical groups, and later the cultural shifts of the 1970s, these historical moments paved the way for 2PAC'S growth and musical journey. Amid this profound societal change, a young voice rose from the streets, not just as a melody, but as an echo resonating with countless hearts. In the 1950s, Black Americans had seen some improvement in their social status compared to the pre-Civil War era, after enduring the immense suffering caused by racial segregation policies. Yet, they were still forced to linger at the bottom of society, their plight remaining deeply troubling. Meanwhile, the United States was basking in the golden age of traditional media, with newspapers and radio delivering news from across the globe at unprecedented speed. After World War II, the U.S. emerged as the world superpower. Its conventional forces, dive-bombing planes, ground troops like a torrent of steel, and nuclear deterrence, propelling it to unmatched national strength. Against this backdrop of national prosperity and unparalleled military might, internal racial conflicts and social inequalities grew sharper. In March 1955, a Black woman's arrest for refusing to give up her bus seat to a white passenger sparked outrage, igniting long-simmering grievances within the Black community and serving as a major catalyst for the civil rights movement. Soon after, Martin Luther King Jr. stepped onto the historical stage, urging Black Americans to fight for their basic rights through nonviolent resistance. His movement captured widespread attention, and after tireless efforts, racial segregation policies began to crumble. The civil rights movement scored significant victories, with countless Black parents securing fundamental rights for their children as American citizens through various means. As the social landscape continued to shift, Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination dealt a devastating blow, further fracturing the already splintered civil rights movement. With the fall of a nonviolent resistance leader, radical factions gained traction, advocating the use of violence to counter the brutality of white institutions and claim their rightful place as American citizens. Among these groups was the Black Panther Party, to which 2PAC'S mother belonged. Some Black individuals found their calling, banding together to form the Black Panther Party. Armed with guns, they maintained order in the ghettos, protected the vulnerable and impoverished, and provided free breakfast to children from struggling families, a legacy that remains inspiring even today. This progressive ideology swept across American society, drawing in even white youth. Inspired by this movement, comic book creator Stan Lee introduced Marvel's first Black superhero, Black Panther. Fast forward to the 1970s. Black Americans had just emerged from the racial segregation of the 1960s, and the civil rights movement, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., had markedly improved their social standing. Still, most lived in poverty. It was in this era of hardship and resilience that rap culture began to take root. In the early 1970s, disco music reigned supreme, and tape recorders and CD players were commonplace. By pairing a rhythmic track with improvised lyrics, a simple rap song was born. Hip-hop culture was still in its infancy, its influence limited and largely unaccepted by the mainstream. This era's rap, known as old school rap, was raw and unpolished, but laid the groundwork for the later surge of new school rap. It was during this time that a legend was about to emerge, the focus of this story, Tupac. At that point, he was still in his mother's womb. His mother, Afeni, was imprisoned during her pregnancy for her involvement in the Black Panther Party's radical activities, facing charges that could have led to a lifetime behind bars. To make matters worse, this young mother couldn't afford a lawyer, a critical disadvantage in any lawsuit, as anyone familiar with American law understands. For context, consider the infamous O.J. Simpson murder case. As the Black Panther Party grew, it inevitably sought political power, triggering a fierce backlash from the federal government, which unleashed relentless suppression tactics. By then, the party was a shadow of its former self, unable to offer Afeni any support, and most believed she was doomed. Yet, this resilient mother refused to surrender. Thinking of the child she carried, who might face misfortune in prison, she drew on her limited legal knowledge from her prior role handling consultations for the Black Panther Party. With no lawyer, she defended herself and, remarkably, won. A month after her acquittal, Afeni gave birth to her son, 2PAC. For 2PAC, childhood was a grueling journey. His mother, a black woman entangled in gang activities and labeled a threat by the government, struggled to raise him and secure legitimate work. They lived in poor but safe neighborhoods where housing costs were, and still are, dirt cheap, keeping them off the streets. Due to her past, their home was under constant police surveillance, occasionally raided. Hunger, poverty, and unseen dangers left 2PAC with a profound sense of insecurity growing up. To survive, he had to tread carefully, steering clear of perils that could drag him into an abyss, a reality that deeply shaped his worldview. Life isn't inherently degrading. For young 2PAC, poverty and vulnerability were inescapable. But his mother, Afeni, didn't just teach him to lament his fate. She urged him to fight back. She told him that if he saw something wrong with the world, he should try to change it, not drift along with it. Her extraordinary experiences had taught her the value of knowledge, and she pushed her son to finish his education. When 2PAC messed up, she'd make him stand by the door and read the New York Times aloud. Those who aim to change the world must first understand it. As a teenager, 2PAC displayed a vision and maturity beyond his years. Then came the vibrant 1980s. After clashing, blending, and merging with mainstream music culture, rap began to carve out its own distinct style, producing a wave of standout works. Trailblazers broke through barriers, finding their footing in the mainstream music market. Rap opened new paths for Black individuals to reach the upper echelons, adding singing, dancing, basketball, and rap to the mix. Their efforts inspired countless young people, including 2PAC, to chase their ambitions. In his teens, 2PAC threw himself into school performances, honing his skills through every opportunity. The stage revealed a new side of him, one no longer meek, but lifted by applause and cheers. It was then that he began mapping out his future. On one hand were the street gang activities he'd grown up around, guns, drugs, and police. On the other, the spotlight of the stage, where he could unleash his talent and earn the crowd's admiration. This driven young man chose music. With his exceptional talent and distinctive voice, he quickly became one of the top rap artists at school. He joined small touring bands and hip-hop groups, learning, expanding his horizons, and sharpening his craft. After years of dedication, 2PAC launched his dream career in rap. Some might see this choice as obvious, but it's worth stepping back into the American social context of a time. Despite a booming economy, the ghettos teemed with crime. Police turned a blind eye to drug trafficking. Some even colluded with dealers. In the film Notorious, there's a scene where Biggie is scolded by his teacher, only for him to retort that she earns less than a janitor while he rakes in cash-selling drugs. He wove this life into his lyrics time and again. When journalists interviewed drug dealers in Brazil, one shared that his childhood dream was to be a firefighter. But prolonged poverty lured him into the massive profits of drug trafficking, fueled by life's practical costs, food, essentials, and the human pull toward comfort. I'm not shocked by this. Instead, I admire those who, despite dire circumstances, resist temptation and pursue their own paths and dreams. By 1991, 2PAC dropped his debut solo album, 2PAC'S Now. It gave him a platform to share his unique worldview through music, setting the stage for his rap career. Though his style and experiences struck some as rough, Tupac zeroed in on social injustice, police brutality, and his foes. For the vulnerable, he revealed a softer side. In the ghettos, children and women lacked education and protection, their lives ignored. Tupac felt compelled to help these overlooked souls change their fates, leading him to write Brenda's Got a Baby. Told from an observer's perspective, the song traces the grim tale of a young black girl at society's margins. Lacking education and guidance, she's assaulted in the chaotic streets, forced into single motherhood, unable to support her child, and ultimately turns to prostitution before dying tragically on the streets. The lyrics are blunt and harsh, with little build-up, but this stark perspective brings a story all too common in the ghetto into the public eye. Tupac hoped people would notice and care, because only when enough people pay attention will more individuals or organizations step up to help these struggling souls. In 1993, Tupac released his second album, Strictly for My Niggaz, which, riding the wave of his debut's popularity, shot to the top of the Billboard charts and achieved massive commercial success. The track Keep Your Head Up built on the first album's themes, echoing its focus on women. From an outsider's view, it vividly portrays the struggles of women raising children while celebrating the greatness and selflessness of maternal love. The song sold like wildfire and soon earned platinum status. At this point, Tupac was at the height of his career. The album's blockbuster sales catapulted him from poverty to rap stardom. But fame brought more than wealth and envious stares. It ushered in a flood of troubles. Opponents are the rungs on the ladder of human progress. A worthy rival is like a dog nipping at your heels while you run. Knowing someone's out there quietly closing in keeps you sharp, pushing you to work harder and grow stronger. Tupac stood tall on the West Coast, armed with his mission and extraordinary talent. Perhaps God found the world too dull, the West Coast brimming with talent and swagger, while the East Coast had only a handful of nobodies. Then a slightly chubby guy stepped up, proclaiming to the world, "The king of East Coast rap is back." With raw skill, he proved that some people are sent to Earth to show what it means to be born for rap. This video ends here. In the next episode, we'll continue with part 2 of 2PAC'S life story. If you enjoy my videos, please hit the subscribe button. See you next time.